Well, okay, welcome to another episode. My name is Jared Castelline. I don't think I do my intros very well because I never say my name. I'm Jared Castelline. This is Castelline Ministries, where I like to create free Bible study content and just put it out there. It's my way of processing things and helping others too at the same. I have lots of Bible studies. Most of them are geared towards like small groups. Go check those out. They're free on my website, CastelineMinistries.org. It's also down in the bottom. This is specifically a Bible study, it's a personal Bible study. So it's a year through the Bible with some unique changes to it that I've kind of put together. This is version 1.0, so I'm sure there'll be changes in the future, but definitely something I've really been enjoying. We are now in First Kings. We've been going through the Bible mostly in the normal order that you typically have. I think so far the only change is we did not have Ruth. So we skipped past Ruth. But other than that, it's been pretty much normal. It will all change after Kings. So we'll read through 1st and 2nd Kings, and then normally in your Bible, you jump right to 1st and 2nd Chronicles. But actually, we will not be doing that. My study goes from 2nd Kings into Isaiah. If you want more details of how I kind of put this together, the why it's in the order that it is, I have a video at the start of this series that goes over that. But needless to say, I think it's been really helpful the way that I've set this up, and with a few modifications to how I've just based off of how I've been feeling it. And any feedback I get from you guys, I'll make some adjustments, and we'll have a 2.0 even better version. So we are in 1st Kings. So we've just finished 1st and 2nd Samuel. Remember, in our books, those are separate. In the original, it would just be called Samuel, and it would be called Kings. So this is 1st Kings. We split it up just because we like smaller books. 1st King, we are at the end of David. So we have David's last words. You have a little bit of like, okay, some of his sons are going to try to take the power, be the king, and so they're off planning, conniving, and then Nathan kind of works with Solomon's mom, which is Bathsheba. Recall that story. And they make sure that Solomon, who is planned to be next, gets anointed before the other people can essentially do a coup. So he gives his last words to Solomon. And Solomon, now you've got this, remember in 2 Samuel, we have this promise from God, like, hey, I'm going to build a house through your family line. So we already got these high expectations of Samuel, and it starts off pretty good. Samuel becomes the king, and God comes to him, and he's like, hey, what do you want? And instead of asking for money or wealth or anything like that, Samuel says, give me wisdom. So it starts off super well for King Solomon. It's looking promising. And he's got all these things that it was really weird if you read it. David's like, okay, you're going to be great, be wise. By the way, I never took care of it, but you probably want to kill this guy and take care of that guy and kill him. You're like, okay, this is just weird. But a lot of parts of the Bible weird, and that's okay. So Solomon, he takes over as king, and it is, you read it and you're like, wow, I would love to live during that time, because they become, one, militarily, they are dominant. Unlike in Samuel where there's always these wars, it just seems like, hey, Israel is just so powerful right now, nobody's messing with them. Israel's so rich right now, they're not in trouble of like famine. And so you get these stories of the workforce, you get the stories of the building, of the temple. You get a little question mark because it seems like the workforce is slave labor. So there's a big question mark like, is this a new king or is this sort of like Pharaoh? Where I would say, so in chapter 6, he's building the temple and goes into all these details. It sounds beautiful. But then in 7, let's see, is that his... Yeah, so it moves from him building the temple to a description of him going to build his dedication of the temple. Here we go, we're in 8. When he moves to start to build his house. So Solomon does a big prayer. I may not be able to find the verse. I just remember that there's a part where it finishes up, and Solomon spent this long building the temple, and it was great. And you're like, that's awesome. And then it starts talking about the amount of stuff and about him building his own house, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, your own house is bigger and grander, and you're being a bit more, spending more time on your own house than the temple, and you get this, you're scratching your head like, why wouldn't you spend more time on God's house? Why are you spending so much time on your house? And so Solomon's undoing starts there, but it continues downhill where, I mean, his main thing is his unfaithfulness to God. He marries lots of women and has lots of concubines. And you get, I mean, that's just, it was called out in Exodus, Leviticus, one of those, Deuteronomy. Like, hey, if and when you have kings, don't let them have many wives. Don't have wives from Egypt. Don't take the horses and chariots from Egypt. And like, he's doing all of those things. So it's not looking good for him, but you still don't get the fall of Israel just because God says, hey, let me go back. I passed it. Yeah. Just because of King David, he's not going to let bad things happen. But there's prediction, hey, once it's your kid in charge, things are going to go bad. And sure enough, as soon as Solomon is dead, you get the separation of the two tribes. So I believe you end up with 10 of the 12 tribes as Israel, and then you get Judah, and I think it's Dan or Benjamin. I always forget. Jeroboam is stand, but they summoned him. I don't think I'm going to find it, guys. You can't know everything of the Bible. So that is sort of, we finish off with Solomon. It's kind of a bummer. He was pretty good, not perfect. So again, we're leaving this part. It does not get better from here. Let's just put it that way. We're going to go through the rest of Kings, and it is going to just look worse and worse and worse. And so by the time you leave Solomon and David, you're just going, okay, humans aren't working. And by the time you get through the Kings, that's most of the narrative kind of done. You get a bit in the other prophets, some of the narrative, especially Jeremiah, tells a lot about the fall. A little bit in Isaiah. And off the top of my head, I can't quite remember more. But you get a few more stories of what happens in the stories. But essentially, we are heading towards the rest of the Kings, the fall of Israel, the fall of Judah, exile, and then the return. So like the narrative is closing down from this big thing, and we don't get any person coming up that's just like, that's the person who's going to save us. The closest you get are some of the prophets like Elisha or Elijah, who are pretty cool, but they are the ones saving. So you look at the rest of the kings, there's a few that do okay, but nobody's like David. No one's like Solomon. And so I think you kind of go through the rest of the Bible wondering how is God going to redeem this? Who's going to crush the head of evil? What's the plan? And that's what a lot of the rest of the prophets and the writings are all about, is reflecting all these ideas and calling forward to what's going to be next. So to give you the short, when you read Kings, so there's a lot of overlap when you read Kings and Chronicles, especially when you get to this part. Kings is a little bit more difficult to read. I found this out while doing a study years ago, because you are constantly jumping between the kings of Judah and the kings of Israel, plus some inserts from stories of Elijah mixed in there. So in terms of trying to keep track of what's going on, it's very difficult for your first time through. If you can find a good graphic to kind of help you figure out where you are in the timeline, super helpful, because you kind of get just a lot of kings killing each other, especially in Israel. A lot of coups happen in there. Judah's not great in that regard either. But yeah, now you do get some stories with Elijah, which are great. Some classic stories. You can think of First Kings. Once you're done with Samuel, you kind of get stories of kings, and then it's more, you've got stories inserted about Elijah, which is pretty interesting stories that I enjoy. One of the main ones being he's the one that does the call the fire down from heaven on the sacrifice that's been waterlogged, which really just upsets the king of Israel and his wife. So you get the story of Elijah running away, fleeing Israel, and he actually ends up at Mount Horeb, which is Mount Sinai. And he has a very similar experience that Moses has with the presence of God. And so it's a very interesting story to kind of read and compare back to Moses. Well, the rest of it is a lot of kings doing a lot of things, none of them great. So I think that's kind of where I want to end it there. Elijah's pretty cool. We'll pick up in 2 Kings with Elisha, who was kind of his successor and his student. And Elisha, one of the cool things about him is, I think in the 1 Kings, Elijah is described with having done 7 miracles, and then Elisha, who asked for double his inheritance or double his blessing, does 14. It could be different numbers, but I'm pretty sure that's the numbers. So Elisha has more miracles recorded than Elijah. So just a fun little fact. Okay, that's it on 1 Kings. We'll jump into 2 Kings. And I'm looking forward to it because at the end of 2 Kings, we really deviate from the normal Bible reading plan. I'm excited to talk about why I think that's cool, and I'm excited to hear from you guys. All right, I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.